Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, inflation took center stage on Capitol Hill today. We'll have more on why the Federal Reserve Chairman says more interest rate hikes could be needed.
And the Justice Department is grounding a merger deal between two major American airlines. What that means for you, coming up.
Plus a little bit more sunshine on the way this week. Breaking down the latest on our next rain chance as well as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley.
And I'm Olivia Calfee. The head of the Federal Reserve testified today before the Senate Banking Committee on the U.S. economic outlook, fighting inflation and the state of employment, including wages and available jobs.
And lawmakers on both sides of the aisle had plenty of questions for Chairman Jerome Powell. CBS's Nicole D'Antonio has more from Capitol Hill.
The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, told lawmakers that the central bank will need to raise interest rates higher than previously expected in order to tame inflation.
Although inflation has been moderating in recent months, the process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go and is likely to be bumpy. As I mentioned, the latest economic data have come in stronger than expected, which suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates is likely to be higher than previously anticipated.
Lawmakers are concerned about rising prices, but they're also concerned that raising interest rates could push the economy into a recession.
The standard has been that there have been recessions and downturns when the Fed has tried to reduce inflation.
Now, right now, the current inflation rate is 6.4% and the current unemployment rate is 3.4%.
Chairman Powell also says in order for inflation to come down, the labor market will need to soften. That means fewer job openings and more layoffs.
Inflation is extremely high, and it's hurting the working people of this country badly. All of them, not just 2 million of them, but all of them are suffering under high inflation, and we are taking the only measures we have to bring inflation down.
And putting 2 million people out of work is just part of the cost, and they just have to bear it.
Powell says the economic data will drive the Fed's decision-making process. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The next time the Fed could raise interest rates is in 3 weeks when the Federal Reserve Board meets again.
President Biden penned an op-ed on Medicare in the New York Times today, just ahead of Thursday's highly anticipated budget release. It's part of President Biden's attempt to distinguish himself from what he called MAGA Republicans, while garnering support among seniors heading into 2024. The president wrote that he would strengthen Medicare's newly established power to negotiate drug prices. His plan would allow Medicare to negotiate prices for more drugs and start price negotiations on specific drugs sooner after they launch.
Beautiful day out there today. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures mild at times. Well, right around where we should be, I should say. It's cooling off fast. 48, the current reading there in Somerset. We will continue to see the dry weather as we head through the rest of the night. There's the view from downtown Hazard. A beautiful look at just a few fair weather clouds in the distance. Even Triangle Park looks greener already with the sunshine we've seen and deep blue skies overhead. Those temperatures got a little bit warm in the Cumberland Valley. 59 Jacksboro, 58 in Middlesboro, already dropping into the 40s. They've stayed in the 40s in the Big Sandy today, where they had a few more clouds just hanging on a little bit longer throughout the day. That is 25, in many cases, parts of the Cumberland Valley, only about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than yesterday at this time. Big Sandy, 25 to 30 degrees cooler than we were yesterday at this time. And we'll continue to see the cool weather as we head into tonight. Upper 20s for tonight, mostly clear and chilly. Already some areas where we've seen the growing season start. A freeze warning in effect for Claiborne, Lee, and Wise counties as we head into the overnight hours. So even if you don't see your county under it, we're all headed into some chilly weather tonight. So make sure to keep a close eye on those plants as we head into tonight. Details, though, on when some slightly milder air works in a few minutes, guys.
Thank you, Evan. The Justice Department plans to block a merger deal between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines.
They say the $3.8 billion acquisition would spell out sky-high ticket prices and fewer choices for consumers.
Our Washington Bureau reporter Molly Martinez joins us now with the details.
It's looking like JetBlue's attempt to buy Spirit Airlines won't take flight after all. Attorney General Merrick Garland announcing the move to ground the plan. It's the latest move in the department's attempt to preserve competition in the market.
If not blocked, the merger of JetBlue and Spirit would result in higher fares and fewer choices for tens of millions of travelers across the country.
At a news conference Tuesday, Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined a grim forecast if it's wheels up for the proposed $3.8 billion deal.
JetBlue's proposed takeover of Spirit will only exacerbate concentration and further stifle competition in the airline industry.
He says right now, 4 major airlines, American, United, Delta, and Southwest, control 80% of the market. According to department statistics, when low-cost carriers like Spirit introduce a new route, the average ticket price falls by 17%. According to the Associate Attorney General, those savings affect travelers across the board.
JetBlue's acquisition of Spirit would particularly hurt those travelers who can least afford to see travel costs rise. Ultra-low-cost carriers like Spirit play a key role in the economy.
Meanwhile, JetBlue claims that this merger will allow them to better compete with those top 4 carriers. The lawsuit will now head to trial. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
Private lender SoFi sued the Biden administration last week over the pause on student loan payments. It's an effort to end the freeze on federal student loan payments that's been in place since March 2020. The moratorium on payments was put in place during the Trump administration to help people struggling financially due to the pandemic, and it has been extended 8 times. SoFi argues the last extension by President Joe Biden in November is unlawful. President Biden and the First Lady will host the South Korean president and his wife at the White House in late April. It will be their second official state visit in Biden's presidency, underscoring close ties between the U.S. and South Korea. The occasion will also celebrate the 70th anniversary of the U.S.-South Korea alliance. The White House says the visit will include a state dinner. White House state visits also traditionally include other formal ceremonies and bilateral meetings.
Brian Laundrie's mother says the controversial letter she wrote her son has been taken out of context. In February, the parents of Laundrie's fiancée, Gabby Petito, filed a motion requesting the letter she wrote that referenced bringing a shovel to help bury a body. Roberta Laundrie says the letter to her son saying burn after reading was meant to show how much she loved him. Brian Laundrie's mother claims the letter was written long before the fateful trip during which her son confessed to being involved in Gabby Petito's death. The Petito family is suing the Laundrie family for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Officials confirm the 4 Americans abducted in Mexico have been located, but 2 of them are dead.
One source familiar with the investigation says the 2 survivors are now in the care of the FBI and have returned to the United States.
Family members say the group of friends traveled from South Carolina so one of them could undergo a medical procedure. Gloria Pazmino has the latest.
A bittersweet ending to the search for 4 Americans kidnapped in Mexico. The governor of Tamaulipas, Mexico, confirming 2 are dead and 2 are alive. A U.S. official familiar with the investigation says the group was found at what appears to be a medical clinic in the border city of Matamoros.
Ambulances and security personnel are giving medical support to the survivors.
Video of the kidnapping is troubling. You can see what investigators believe are members of a drug cartel loading the group into the back of a truck after a shooting that left 1 bystander dead. A source close to the investigation says the abduction is likely a case of mistaken identity. Multiple agencies will now work to find those responsible, officials said.
I've been briefed by the FBI, which is working with Mexican authorities, and senior department officials are working closely with our counterparts at the State Department.
The State Department, meanwhile, is renewing a warning for Americans considering travel to this region of Mexico.
The travel advisory for Tamaulipas State remains at level 4. Do not travel. We encourage Americans to heed that advice.
In Brownsville, Texas, I'm Gloria Pazmino.
China's foreign minister says there will surely be conflict and confrontation if the U.S. does not hit the brakes. He suggested the recent balloon crisis could have been avoided, and he also echoed accusations from the Chinese president saying the U.S. is trying to contain China's development. These digs came on the sidelines of China's National People's Congress, a key annual political event. Ties between the two countries are at their worst in decades. The U.S. claims it seeks to compete with China, but does not seek conflict.